Alan, how are you doing?
I'm good, Max. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show. Mad Max Radio, Live 365, iHeartRadio. We have the one and only Nancy Allen. You may know her from Carrie, RoboCop, Blowout. And she's been in a lot, Dressed to Kill. Been a lot of films there. How's everything going? Welcome to
Yes.
the show.
No, everything's going great. Yeah, having I had a great weekend at the Hollywood show. Saw some old cronies of mine, and that's always fun.
Yeah. But how is everything right now in 2024? We're at the end of it right now. I know you do a lot with the weSPARK Center down there in Los Angeles for cancer research and support and everything. So how's everything as far as like the film world goes? Because I know you've kind of been retired now, but I did see you've been doing some things recently. There's some things that you do still do.
Well, I'm not, you can never really be retired, can you, if you're an actor? But my focus has been really on weSpark for the last 20 plus years. Uh, Fortunately, due to the success I had in my career and the many people that I've known through the years in the business, I have a lot of support within the Hollywood community for the organization. So we most recently had a comedy show, which was a lot of fun and raised a lot of money. And now we're getting ready for the Run Walk. And then it'll be the Jason Alexander poker tournament. That's kind of a crazy, fun event. And yeah, so it's great. It's a really great organization. I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we'll get into it more later of it later, but I wanted to start with your early life because you're originally from New York and then you eventually went out to LA, but you were started out doing commercials. So what was it that got you into commercials? Kind of get into your entry, which basically got you to where you're currently seated right now.
Sure. So I was born in New York. I was in the Bronx when we were, so I'm a Bronx girl. And then we moved to, some people call it the North Bronx, Yonkers. And I was studying to be a dancer. And I was enrolled in, about to start at the High School of Performing Arts, and which was, in Manhattan. And my mother said to me, "You stay out of Greenwich Village." And I went, "Oh, what's that?" So of course I went immediately to Greenwich Village. But anyway, I digress. So I went to performing arts, and after a year, it was pretty clear that dance was not going to be my path. And so at that time, after the first year, I left school and I went to another friend of mine had left the school, and she went to a school called Quintano School for Young Professionals, which was across the street from Carnegie Hall. And that's where my dance classes were. So I thought, oh, okay, this is really great. So I'll go there. And when I, I was in class one day, so there are a lot of people who were working as actors or models or musicians. There's a lot of famous people went to that school. And a friend came up to me in class and she said, "Oh, you know, my mother, you'd be great for commercials. My mother would love you." And I said, "Oh," I thought, well, summer's coming up. I said, "Do they pay you for that?" And she said, "They do. They pay really well." So I went to meet her mother, and then she was a manager, talent manager for kids, teenagers, and she started sending me out on auditions for commercials. And I would go to them. However, if there was a sheet of dialogue, like copy, I would excuse myself and go to the restroom because I was afraid to speak. I'd never acted. So I got caught after a while and then enrolled in acting classes. And, as they say, the rest is history. I did commercials for 10 years, and I at some point I said, "Okay, I've sold everything. There's nothing left to sell. I don't know what I'm gonna do." And I had gotten offered a role after I met with Hal Ashby, and I offered a role in The Last Detail, which was not the role I played, it was the role of the hooker. And I looked at the script and I thought, I don't know, naked. I don't know. My father, I don't know. This is not going to go well. So I talked to Lynn Stallmaster, who was the casting director. I said, "Lynn, I just don't think I can act and be naked at the same time." So he said, "Well, Hal really wants you in the movie." And I was cast in the party scene opposite Jack Nicholson, which was, talk about trial by fire.
Yeah, I did hear about this film. And then you were also going on some theater auditions. So were there any parts offered to you there, or you just because I know you went to LA, but were there any parts that you did have the opportunity for as far as theater?
Well, nothing really came to fruition. There was something that actually a friend of mine in school, there was a play that never actually happened on Broadway that they were looking at the two of us for as friends, and it didn't come to pass. And I think film was such a natural transition from commercials. I'd gotten really my training ground, working with cameras, lighting, repetition of things, keeping it fresh. I mean, it really, people used to, in those days, they'd make fun of actors in class would make fun of, oh, you're doing commercials, you're a sellout and all of that. But it really was a great training ground for movies. So in my rear view, I look back and I think, God, I wish I would have focused a little more on theater, because I mean, New York theater, it's like the ultimate in acting.
Mhm. It's something that definitely sparked a relation to me when hearing your story was that because I heard that you had difficult times in your life at time and you got escape with fantasies with watching films on TV and then getting creative in school. So that kind of hit home for me when I heard about your experiences.
Well, sure. It's interesting. I would say the home that I grew up in was a very loving home, but there was also a lot of chaos. I consider myself a child of chaos. And dance was really my first escape in terms of, it was like a moving meditation. I would go to class every day. So that was the first step. But as a child, I just fell into the world of movies, watching over and over again. We had something called Million Dollar Movie on WOR in New York, and I would watch these films over and over and over again. And I loved them, films from the 30s and 40s and 50s. And just, I was really absorbed in that world. And so it was a really magical for me. I remember first coming out to Hollywood and driving onto the MGM lot and seeing MGM, and then walking down, going into the Thalberg building and walking down the halls and those gigantic black and white portraits of the stars. It was incredible. And oddly enough, a lot of people are intimidated by sound stages, but when I remember walking onto a sound stage for the first time and thinking like, oh, I feel really comfortable here. I can't explain it, but it was like a little womb. And being I was a very shy and introverted young girl. And so uh, it was, I guess, a natural thing for me to just kind of go into the lives and imaginations of other people besides myself. It was a nice escape.
And I did hear about the agent that you met with once you got out to LA saying that you were too old. Do you still believe that is an inspiring story, but do you still believe that the industry still looks at ageism anymore?
I do absolutely think so. I will say that of the five agents, it was the woman who told me that. And I called her first. I thought, oh, really? But for those people who told me no, and I'm sure many people have said that, it was not like, okay, fine, I'll show you. It was really something that spurred me on. I tell you what, I think it's probably still there, but what's quite different now than when I was starting out is that, and I love it, it makes me so happy when I see all the young actresses who are out there who become successful. Maybe they have one film, it's a great success. They start their own production companies, they start developing material, they produce their own films and films of other people. And I think that's what's different. I think women in the business in that way have come into their own, but across the board, it's not just actors and actresses, it's writers, it's maybe not directors, but I do think there is that thing, especially out here, not as much maybe in New York, but LA, it's very, very much so, unfortunately.
So now you're going to show them because she told you go back to New York. So how was it that you were able to land the audition for Carrie as Chris?
Had nothing to do with my agent. I had this idiotic person as an agent, Bud Moss. I can tell you his name because I think he's gone. But he kept saying, I said, well, don't you need any pictures? he said, no, no, I'm out in the field. I'm talking about you. And, I thought, well, what do I know about the movie business? Maybe it's different than commercials. And so I was really getting bored. I joined a gym, the Beverly Hills Health Club for Women, which was in West Hollywood. I don't know why they called it that, but and I was getting ready to turn around and come home because I was running out of money. And I thought, well, at least I could do commercials in New York. At that time, there really was no business in commercials out here. It was mostly in New York and a little bit in Chicago. So I was coming out of the steam room and I heard, Nancy, is that Nancy Allen? And I said, yes. And I turned around and it was Harriet Helberg. And I knew her from, she used to cast, the casting director for Horn Griner Productions in New York and commercials. And she said, hi. She said, oh, I'm casting a movie and there's a really good part. She's, I don't think you'll get the part because it's really thin, but at least you'll get to meet a director and read. And I said, oh my God, this is so great. So I had to drive over to Culver City, pick up the script, read this, and then go into read the next day. And that was for Carrie. I was the last person on the last day of casting to read. And then I left and I was so excited and felt so great that at least I'd gotten an opportunity. I didn't really give it much thought. And by the time I got home, there was a message on the answering machine saying they want to screen test you. So that's how I got my first part out here. But the story doesn't end there. I'll tell you, the story doesn't end there. I rehearsed with another actor, Michael Talbot. Brian was testing 2 actors for each role. So I rehearsed with Michael. And when I got to the screen test the next day, the director, Brian, was there and he said, well, everybody's going to test with somebody else. You're going to test with 2 people. So I first read and did the 2 scenes with Michael, and that went really well. And then in walks John Travolta, who I had not met, and I looked at him and I thought, well, he's getting the part. I could just tell his swagger, everything about him. I could say, he was like already inhabiting the character. And I was so deflated because I thought, this is all going through my mind before we even read. I thought, oh no, whoever he read with is rehearsed with is going to get the part. So I'm totally out of the picture. But we had such chemistry together that even though we hadn't rehearsed, it was just like magical for us. So, so that happened. And then Harry called whispering to me, you're going to get the part. They really love you. This was one night. I, of course, called my mother and said, Mom, I've got this part. I was all excited. The next morning when I'm leaving the house, the phone rings and it's, hey, it's Harriet. And I go, oh, Harriet, hi. She says, oh, listen, I probably shouldn't have said anything because you know what? They're going to go to New York and they want to look at some more actors. And I said, but I already told my mother. It was like, this is done, but I mean, there's no going back on this. But in fact, that is what happened. And they put me on hold. That was in November, end of November 75. And I then did not get the part. I did not get cast until, I guess it was January.
Wow.
So by then it was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm going to do this movie. But needless to say, I was really thrilled, and it was a really wonderful experience.
Yeah. And look at what it's turned into. It became a classic film and now it's got a remake. And then I just heard today announced that there's a new series for Amazon in the works for Carrie.
Oh God,
Yeah.
what a terrible idea. I don't know. I don't get it. I will tell you, of course, it's almost the 50th. When it was the 40th anniversary, I had a screening at a theater, a big theater downtown. We had almost 1,000 people and it was a fundraiser for weSPARK. And it was crazy. So many people came, all ages, and a lot of people dressed in character. And oh my God, it was almost like the horror, what is it? I can't even think of it now. They were shouting the lines back at the screen. Piper Laurie came and she hadn't seen the film in a big audience. And she was just so tickled, when people applauded when she came on stage. And we had the best time, just the best time.
Yeah, no, that film definitely is powerful. Was Stephen King present at any time when filming this movie?
No, he wasn't, unfortunately. No, it was a really small production. The film was made for a little over $1 million, and it was supposed to be I think I don't know, a 10-week shoot. Well, we went like a week or two over a schedule, but every day was so exciting. And whether we were working or not, everybody came to the set to see what was going on and watch other people, with the exception of the scenes in the house with Sissy and Piper. That was a closed set. So, yeah.
Yeah, we can't forget about the prom scene. Is you're the one that pretty much set it up there. Get the Caro syrup right up, run on Sissy Spacek.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah. Look at what it turned into. A bunch of people getting killed, and then eventually she gets you in the car with John Travolta.
She does. And Betty Buck, to quote Betty Buckley, she said, "Yes, you died very explosively." in the film. She had a theory about how each character died. Anyhow, I thought
Uh,
that was funny.
the slap, and she
Yeah, but I think
slapped you.
it really does hold up. Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
she does.
does.
She slapped me over 20 times. And each time Brian kept saying, "Hit her harder, hit her harder, hit her harder." And my ear was bruised. And after we finished shooting that, Brian came to my dressing room. He says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Can you tell me, like, why did we have to do that so many times?" He said, "Well, I just wanted a certain reaction from you." And I said, "Well, couldn't you have just told me?" And he said, "Well, I just wanted it to be spontaneous." So I don't know. It was pretty crazy. And Betty kept saying, "God, my hand is hurting." Never mind my face.
Yeah, and the prom scene, it does hold up because I know that you were about to say that it does hold up to this day.
Oh yeah, it really does. And audiences love it. And it's just who knew? You look back, I mean, we were paid $605 a week. Not very much. It was scale at the time. And we all thought it was a great movie. And I think it really holds up for a lot of reasons. First of all, I do think it's a terrific story. Stephen King is a great storyteller, and he's very impactful. He gets you emotionally. Um it's not just exploited, but he really gets into the emotion of the characters in his writing. So there's that. I do think that it was cast really well. The chemistry of the cast, so everybody was good in the part, but the chemistry between the actors was very unique and really special. And it's pretty hard to replicate that, because it's the story is the story. But if you look at what was done afterwards, you look at that remake, they had a lot of money. They threw a lot of money at that film. And it really kind of didn't do very well, because you don't have the right, I don't know, it wasn't the magic of the first one. It's very hard to repeat something like that,
Yeah.
at least in my opinion.
And the prom scene was more sinister in the first one too. You could just, and when you start really getting into storylines, something that I realized, especially when doing my research for the interview today, is the hallucinations of Carrie, because not everyone was laughing. Apparently, she was hallucinating a lot of it, so a lot of people died, and they didn't even laugh at her.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Well, that's her mother's voice. They're all gonna
they're
laugh
all
at
gonna
you. They're all
laugh.
gonna laugh at you. Yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable, but a classic film. And then you go on to do what we got, Dressed to Kill there. That's another one. And I heard
Well,
about
in
the,
between that was I Want to Hold Your Hand. It was
yeah,
Robert
that was.
Zemeckis' first film, and I did that. That was really a lot of fun, and I think it's a terrific movie. Didn't do really well. It wasn't released well, but I did that, and then yeah, after that, Dressed to Kill.
Dressed to Kill. I heard about the misogyny, that there was some issues with the MPA, that they wanted to give it an X rating eventually too.
Well, they wanted to give it an X rating, really for the shower, not the shower scene, for the elevator scene,
Mhm.
the violence. So Brian had to cut out some of the explicit violence. I mean, there's still a lot of it in there. My feeling was always that it's you don't need a lot of it, because just the on a psychological level, seeing this character backed into the elevator with a razor, a crazy person coming towards you, right there, you're traumatized. Just the idea of it. So you don't, it's almost like less is more, but directors like more if they can have more. More of everything, more blood, more everything.
Were you worried about playing this role in this film just based on how audiences may view, or even casting directors like, oh, maybe she'll fit this role? Was there any worry with this part?
You mean in the Liz character in Dress
Yeah,
to
for
Kill?
Liz.
Well, my only concern, when I was shooting 1941 when Brian was writing this, and he was like kind of reading me as he was writing it and what he was doing, and when he told me, I said, "Oh, this is so great! I could see the movie, as he was reading, you could actually see it." And I said, "People are going to love it." And he said, "Well, I'm glad you like it because I wrote this part for you." So that was quite lovely. And I was very excited because it was going to be my first starring role. But then my insecurity and my panic set in, like, how am I going to do this? Am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to really live up to this role? So I had a lot of anxiety about it. We were living in the village at the time, and I used to go out and, walk around the park and go, just think it, just literally in a panic, preparing myself for this part. But once we started rehearsals, I felt really good about it. I could see the character coming together, and having the incredible Anne Roth do the costumes. It's kind of like once you get your hair, your makeup, the costumes, and all of that helps you with the character. And of course the divine Michael Caine. I mean, he was just so generous and wonderful and funny. He was so funny and fabulous and supportive of me. It was a great experience, but yeah, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to pull it off. So there
Oh.
was that.
And then we got Blowout here. You reconnect with John Travolta. Was that chemistry still there from when you guys worked on Carrie?
Oh my God, yes. I hadn't seen him. We did Carrie, and then he went off and did Saturday Night Fever, which um, he recommended me for. So they actually met me for that film. I was really angry that I didn't get it because I thought, well, I can dance and we'd be great dancing together. So he did that. That was very successful. And then he did Grease, and I hadn't seen it. So when he was showing up for rehearsal, I was very anxious, and I thought I was going to be like, star thing going on. And he walked in the door, and he's like, "Hey," and we hugged, and he said, "Let's order a pizza." And it was all about the food with John. And we just started laughing and having a great time and really working on those scenes together, because the roles were not written for someone like me or for someone like John. It was different kind of, if you think of someone like Jimmy Woods, that's more like a cerebral actor, whereas John's more of an emotional actor. And the character that I played, she was supposed to be older and more kind of downtrodden. And so when we were cast, we had to do some improvisations, and Brian did some rewrites trying to make those roles work for us, which I think he did.
Yeah. What was your reason for changing the voice in the film? Because I know you changed your voice for this one.
Yes, much to the dismay of George Leto, the producer who came on the set. John was paid $3 million for that film. I mean, these were big numbers in those days. And so he didn't want to shave, and he wanted to look like very real. And so George came on the set, and he looked, he says, "I paid $3 million for a movie star, and this is what I'm getting." He didn't say it to John, but he's saying, and then he listened to me, he says, "Are you going to do that voice for the whole movie?" And I said, "Yes." And he just shook his head and walked away. So here was the thinking. The thinking for me is that I've known some women throughout the years, women who I look at them as women that don't really want to grow up, and they want to be, they've kind of dumbed themselves down a little bit. And so, they just don't want to take some responsibility. So they just start, their voice kind of lands right here in their throat. And they just, it's that, that's where the thinking came from on that. Also, I remember watching, I loved Julietta Messina in La Strada, and Judy Holliday, and Born Yesterday. So I felt like that kind of had that. Because you look at that character, that's kind of the thing. It's like she's kind of not that bright, and she's kind of not wanting to be that bright because she doesn't want to take responsibility. So I thought it was a good choice. People either loved it or hated it. I remember there was a critic who I loved. She was the entertainment editor at I think it was at the Detroit Free Press, and I couldn't wait. She loved me and Dressed to Kill, and I couldn't wait to read her review. And the review, I start reading the review, and she says, Nancy Allen, every time she opens her mouth, it takes you a full minute to recover. And I went, oh no, I was so upset. But to this day, I think it was the right choice. And, it's hard to look at it and listen to it for me, any of my work, but I believe that was the right choice for that character.
You also had to overcome the fear of being trapped in a car with the water filling up. Is that true? Is that something that you had? I've read
Yes,
the, yeah.
I'm claustrophobic. Let's start
Mhm.
there. And Brian told the special effects crew that he told them I was claustrophobic. He said, so make sure that Nancy can see the escape route when she gets into the car. Well, we get to the set, which was out here. It was Warner Brothers, and it's the only place. There were two, MGM and Warner Brothers had a big tank where you could shoot underwater and water sequences. And the car was submerged underwater. And there was this little hole cut in the roof of the car that I had to kind of, with a tube above, that I kind of had to slither down into to get in there. And then they hadn't tried anything. And there was a special effects guy that was in the car who had like a breathing, underwater breathing, like if you're gonna go deep sea diving apparatus under there. And they thought, okay, well, we'll do a thing, you'll bang on the thing, and then the water will fill up. Well, the water rushed in so fast into the car. I literally only did one take. I could not. So any terror you see in my face is real. And the body you see coming out through the window is not my body. It was my brilliant stunt double who got in there for me, because I was so traumatized I couldn't get back in the car. I was shaking. It was awful, really awful. I mean, I shouldn't have been so scared. I mean, they're not going to let me die on the set, whatever, but it was rough.
And the stunt double, was this your same stunt double that you had throughout your career? Because I know in Poltergeist 3 that you had your own stunt double with the makeup I was reading online. Is that right? And especially with the mirror scene?
No, they're really just doubles. I mean, they're really just my stand-ins. The stunt doubles I had, I had a stunt double in RoboCop, but I didn't have a stunt double for Carrie, except I will say, who was it? Not Dick Zeiker. Yeah, I think it was, I think it was Dick Zeiker, this big man put on a blonde wig and drove the car that blew up in Carrie. But yeah, this was just a very generous and sweet stand-in that they put in the water and, pulled her through the car. So I
Yeah.
don't remember who it was, but if she's listening, I thank her.
Well, I know when you got the script for RoboCop, you asked if they were going to change the title. Could you imagine if they did change the title and how much different that would be?
Oh my God, yes, but I mean, come on. You open a script and you look, it's like RoboCop. It sounds so cheesy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really cheesy. But I thought, well, okay, I'll read a little bit of it. And I literally couldn't put it down. It was such a perfectly written script. It was smart. It was funny. It pulled you in. It worked on every level, really. I mean, it was political. It was funny, like smart funny. And there was an emotional component to it, which really is beautiful. And I think the choice of Paul Verhoeven to direct it, he really, certainly the visual is stunning, but he brought with, I think, really made that relationship with these characters, with my character, with Peter, and with the RoboCop character, and the white. He really got into the soul of the piece, and we just had a RoboCop reunion this last weekend. Crazy Peter was there, and Ray Wise, and I miss Paul McCrane, he couldn't make it, but a lot of the actors who had a role in the movie, and it was an astonishingly exciting set to work on. And when I read it, I said, this is my part. I knew right away it was my part. You just kind of, I could feel it. And my father was a cop, and I thought, I know this, I know the relationship with the partner and all of that. And then I heard that someone else was cast, and I went, no, 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 that's not right. That can't be. This is my part. And then I forgot about it, and then eventually it came back to me. So I'm really glad, because it was such a change from what I had done, and to have the opportunity. And I thought I'd really only seen Soldier of Orange that Paul directed. I hadn't seen his earlier films. And I just thought, this man is a master filmmaker. So
With RoboCop 2, I heard that there was some difficulties with the director on this film.
he was horrible. I hated him. I agreed to a script. I read the script, and he proceeded to change everything. And in fact, some of the reviews complained that certain elements were missing from the film, and made me mad because they were really all in the movie. And the film it has the darkness and the violence, but what it's missing is the humor and the heart. Because if you look at the film, it doesn't have any of that. And it really reflects who he is. And it's funny because one of the actors that was there said, oh yeah, no, Frank Miller was writing and changing the script every day. Well, that was because of Irvin Kershner. And and then I found out he didn't really want me for the picture. And he said, well, you cannot, it's a sequel, you can't recast her. And so I went through 3 months of just like, I had to just soldier through, but I didn't know what was going on. I just knew he was not very nice. And so when I told this story a while ago, and someone said, well, he died. And I said, I know, but not soon enough for me. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but he was horrible. The only director that I can say that about. Everybody else I worked with, I really loved and had great working relationships. He was just a crabby, mean man. I know
What
it's
made you?
horrible.
No, you know what? But we need more of this. Is honesty. That's what the world lacks. Is honesty right now.
Well, I'm old enough that I don't care, and I'm gonna
Yeah, I
just be
like that
honest.
attitude. We need more people like you. With what made you still do RoboCop 3 after the bad experiences with this director?
So, um, yeah, it was like when that came around, I thought, oh, I just don't have it I just don't have it in me. And two things. I'd gotten so much mail from young girls about the Anne Lewis character, and what it meant to them, and how they felt about her. And I thought, well, if they're going to do this movie, if I don't do it, what are they going to do? What are they going to do with her? Are they going to just, recast me? Are they going to, whatever? And I just thought, I've got to finish the story. I've got to finish her story. And then I had a lunch scheduled with Fred Decker, and I woke up from a dream, and I thought, oh, they're going to kill her. I knew it. I just had a premonition. I was so upset. And so I sat with him very patiently, sort of telling me, and oh, blah, blah. And he says, and I don't want to upset you, but I said, I know they're going to kill her. He said, how did you know? I said, I don't know. I had an intuition, my little premonition about it. So for me, it's, you know, well-meaning as it was great. It didn't, they tried to do PG-13, and they thought they were going to get a crossover audience with kids. They really ruined it, and dear Robert Burke, who I adore, wonderful actor, and he was such a good sport. He had to, in the second RoboCop, they lightened up the suit, the RoboCop suit for Peter, but they also molded it to his body. So whoever played the role had to fit into that suit. Can you imagine? Even if you're the same size as somebody, you're now getting into something that's been molded to their body. So it was awful for him. And, yeah. So, yeah, it's disappointing. I really think for me, there's one movie, it's RoboCop, and that's it. A lot of people like the second movie, and good for them. It's just, not, I think he missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, you don't associate it with good times. And the first one's a classic, and it's a classic character with Anne. It really resonated with the audience, and I think that first one definitely is a standalone film.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Poltergeist 3, this is another one you get the opportunity
Oh,
for. I heard that you loved going to Chicago to film this.
I love Chicago. For me, being a New Yorker, it's just like a manageable New York. It's a really cool city, great um, museums and theater and food and shopping. It's just like a great place to be. It has terrific energy. Um, it was a very problematic production. Gary Sherman had a wonderful idea. He was so smart, and it was funny. I was talking about this with someone today. He actually constructed the film. You probably know this. To all the special effects were done live. A lot of it was done about the mirrors, so they created this sort of live special effect. And I remember years later, he said to me, "Oh my God, I can't believe how hard I made this on myself and everybody else. We could have just done it." But it was an interesting shoot. And I will say about sweet Heather O'Rourke, um, she was very special kid. On the one side of it, she was just a real kid. She loved Barbie, she loved this, she loved her mom. She was very, not child actory at all. On the other side of it, I feel like it was such an exhausting production, but anytime Heather was on the set, I'd almost feel this sense of like, oh, good, Heather's here. She was such a grounding force. I feel like maybe she was just a little old soul somewhere. And I enjoyed working with her and the other actors. Other than it being very exhausting and difficult, we had a good time.
Was there any concern with you taking on this film? Because I know with all the events that have happened around it, and just I know people said it's a cursed film, and I did those rumors kind of spark after Heather O'Rourke passed that it was cursed?
Of course,
Hmm.
of course, people try to get that connection. And, I mean, obviously in the first one, Dominic Dunn and I think wasn't there someone else? I don't remember. I don't remember who, but I just don't, I don't kind of believe. I'm not superstitious in that way. I have my own ways, but not in that way. That something's cursed like that, it's just kind of, mm-mm.
Yeah,
But it adds to the spookiness, doesn't it, of
it
the
does.
film?
But that film definitely has some memorable moments with the garage scene, the mirrors we brought up, the elevator scene when you and Tom. I heard that you and Tom got into a fight. This was the only actor that you got into a fight with. What
Where'd
caused
you
this?
hear that? I have never, ever, 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 ever had an argument with an actor except for Tom. And I was so excited to work with him because I'd always loved his work. So I'm gonna, in hindsight now, I'm gonna chalk it up to maybe he was going through a divorce and he was having a difficult time. I don't know if I looked like his wife. I don't know what was going on there, but he was so not helpful on set. For instance, you shoot the master and then you do the cutaways, you do the close-ups. So when you're doing like if it's your close-up, I'd have to be as close as possible to camera to keep your eye close to the camera. And he would always be leaning, pulling my screen, pulling myself off, my look off screen. He'd be mumbling under his breath. I mean, he was just, he worked my last nerve. And finally, as we were walking off the set at the end of the day, I said, "Thanks for the help with the scene." I don't know where it came from. And we got into an argument. What did we say? I don't know. I know we were in his trailer and I'm sure everybody heard it. But yeah, it was after that, it was just I know it's just gonna have to get through it. You know what I mean?
Uh, Unbelievable. And that, especially when
Uh,
you're on the window rig, when you're all the way up in the air there, that's a scary scene. Not even just from the point of it being spooky, but if you're afraid of heights, it's way up there.
oh yeah, no, and that was very early on. And I remember Gary Sherman said to me, now try to seem scared. I said, I think I can work it up. I think it's gonna be okay. Don't worry about it.
I mean, we've heard the stories that directors come out and say that they didn't shoot the ending, but I've heard you say that the ending was already filmed after Heather O'Rourke had passed, and that and then it had to go back and reshoot it because it didn't come out that the way he wanted it. I've heard so many stories, but your confirmation
Yeah,
of it always is that the movie was finished.
the movie was finished,
Mhm.
but there was a scene. Um, I think it's where we're coming through I don't who even remembers coming through the fog or whatever. I don't even know what it was. That we did, I guess you'd call it really more pickup shots. But you'd have to ask Gary, but I don't believe that it was because of Heather dying. I don't think so. And people have asked too that did they change the ending because of her? I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Yeah. No, it's always interesting to hear. There's always so many stories, but I'm glad to hear that they didn't change the ending because of that. What was the moment for you to where you said that it's time for you to step back in Hollywood? And because I remember you were playing celebrity golf, and that's why you got into the weSPARK and everything with the Cancer Society. What was the moment for you that you wanted to take a step back in acting?
So, let's see, I guess in 1994, it's 30, I can't believe it's 30 years ago. I had two older brothers. My middle brother died very unexpectedly. And then 7 months later, my oldest brother died. And I'd already lost my father to cancer. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I just felt I didn't have somewhere, maybe it was grief, I don't know, the same, same drive, the same passion that I'd had for acting. And I needed to bring my mother out with me. And so the idea of going on, I did something where I went on location. I went to Argentina and I shot a film there. And I just felt like I just needed to simplify my life. And I will add to that, some of the projects that were coming to me at that time, I just didn't like them. They just, I like to do something. I either have to like the director, like the role. You always have to, for me, you kind of have to like the script. And at that time, I just didn't know what I was going to do because this was since I was 15, I was acting. And that's when Wendy Joe asked me to be a celebrity golfer. And then she's, oh, you're into all that woo-woo stuff. You like yoga and you like acupuncture. Maybe you can help me with this cancer support center. She says, I want it to be a creative environment. And I went, okay, I can help you a little bit. And so that's kind of how it started. I didn't think it was going to be a life or career change. And I knew I enjoyed it and I knew I felt passionate about it. And I remember thinking, I wish that we'd had something like this when my father was going through cancer. It would have helped so much. And it was an opportunity because she charged me with creating the program map for the organization. And it was a way of being creative in a very different way. And my friends were so confused. They kept asking me, aren't you sad? Don't you miss being creative? And I said, well, I feel like I am being creative in just a different way. And the beauty of having been in the business for so long and made so many movies with so many incredible people, between Wendy and I, and of course, Wendy's gone a long time since then, I've gotten so many people that I knew and have worked with to support the charity and, in so many different ways by either making donations or really showing up at events. And people say, oh, you're retired. And I go, no, not really. I'm not really retired. When the right thing comes, if the right thing comes, if it's the right script, if it's the right role, if it's the right director, I will totally consider doing it. I'm at a place where I would consider doing it, but not unless it's something that I feel excited about.
Mhm.
So
And how people can people get involved with this if they're really going through this with cancer, and just even because you always say that the caregivers oftentimes look worse than the people that are actually going through it because it's a lot of stress and it's a lot of things they got to keep track of. So how can people get involved immediately if they're looking for help into weSPARK?
Sure, and I just want to mention that all our services are free
Mhm.
for cancer patients and their loved ones. So it's either their partner, it could be a family, it could be a close friend, anyone who's emotionally invested. And they can go to wespark.org and go to the website, look around and see what we have, connect with us. There's some place they can email that's listed right there, and someone will get back with them. And since, it's so funny how it is now, because it's almost a gift of the pandemic. Because of that, instead of just servicing people in a small area of Southern California, because it is virtual and so many things are like, here we are in Zoom. A lot of the support groups are on Zoom, a lot of the classes are on Zoom. So they can really be anywhere and benefit from the services. So everything's free, and I hope that if you need support, reach out to us, because it's what we do is really quite wonderful.
Mhm. Was there anything that you were able to learn since being a part of this organization? I did hear about your diagnosis, and I'm happy to hear that you well. Is there anything that you learned about what maybe, I mean, you can't always prevent it. It could be hormonal or something that comes from genetics. So is there something that you learned throughout this time being a partners organization to where you can perhaps prevent it in any way, even though it's kind of tough to say?
The obvious with all health things is, to eat well and exercise and get rest. I mean, all of that is there. But, there are a number of cancers that are preventable, that are that can diagnosed early, can be prevented, like breast cancer, like prostate cancer, like colon cancer, those three top ones. If you don't feel well, if something doesn't feel right, get it checked out. Don't wait around to see what it is. And and I do think that those are the basics. Those are just the basics as far as prevention. Anything can happen. I mean, you think about it. What is cancer? It's one crazy cell that refuses to die. It just keeps, populating over and over and over again. So the sooner it's caught, the better. The great news is that now the treatments are so much better and so much more targeted. The screenings are better. Everything's better. So, stay on top of your health. If you do have cancer in your history, I mean, my cousin had colon cancer in his late 40s. So his kids at that time were like in their late teens and early 20s. They had to start getting tested right away. And actually, two of them did have cancer, but they got it early. So you do have to pay attention. You do have to be aware of your history. And, I always think, take care of yourself and be happy.
Yeah.
Happiness doesn't prevent it, but it can kind of help you get your way through it and get support,
Mhm. Yeah. Nancy, when you look at your entire filmography, what do you feel as though is the role that you related closely to yourself as Nancy Allen?
Well, they're all a part of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Each one is a part of me. Um, well, I don't think that people who would look at me and think of me, especially even as a young girl, would think of me as being very closely to Anne, because they look at me and they think I'm so feminine and all of that. But I'm pretty tough. I went off on my own at 19. I took off for Europe. I did a lot of things. Just, there's a part of me, and I look back and think, this shy child, I was pretty fierce at the end of the day, and really went after for what I want, so of what I wanted. I think certainly that aspect, and I think the Liz character, and I think that's what, when Brian was writing his name, because I really, um, I really am an independent, I'll take care of myself, I'll do this, I'll do, that kind of a take charge person, which she was. Um, but on the naive side, of course, not the place that I've lived from, the Sally, that sort of naivete and all of that. I've certainly used that to manipulate maybe my father a little bit, But in terms of the characters, I think probably those two Um, Now, there's probably a little bit of Chris that lives in me, so look out.
Especially with the director from RoboCop 2. We need Chris against him. Yeah.
Had I known, I would have made his life hell.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Nancy Allen, is there anything else you love let your fans know? Anything else that we didn't get into that you want to speak on that you have on the way? Anything else?
I don't think so. I just am so appreciative having met so many lovely fans at the different shows that I've done over the years, the fan shows. I'm just so grateful and appreciative that people have enjoyed the work and have taken the time to tell me that. And I feel very fortunate. You do a great interview.
Oh,
I
thank
want to
you.
thank you.
Oh, it means a
You
lot.
do
Thank
your
you,
you do
Nancy.
your homework.
Oh, it means a lot. Yeah, I make sure to always give my guests the best interview I can because I know a lot of times it's generic questions, but I always make sure to go deep into the person's life story. And I'm happy that you enjoyed it.
I did, and I thank you.
Thank you. Anytime, you're always welcome back on the show. Thank you to Maxwell for getting us set up too and your agents, and they were a delight.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Of
You take
course.
care
You
and
too,
good
Nancy.
luck.
Yes, you too. Thank you. I look forward to speaking with you again, seeing everything that you have on the way next.
Thanks, Max. Take
Thank you,
care.
Nancy. Take care.
All right,
Bye
honey. Bye
bye.
bye.